This is the M Pods, Matt, and you're about to listen to an excerpt from our podcast. If you enjoy this and you want to hear more, hit one of your favourite listening locations and search for Spank Media, The End. Now I'm going to hand you over to, well, me. So I will give you my brief thoughts on the Marvels and Tim, and feel
Please.
free to ask any questions. So it is directed by Mia DaCosta of Candyman alumni. It has the return of Brie Larson, Tiona Paris, Iman Vellani, Sam Jax is back, and Zor Ashton, aka Mrs. Tom Hiddleston, as the villain, whose name I'm not even bothered about. I would say there was a point in the MCU where finishing in the bottom 5 wasn't a big problem because all the films are brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably the worst MCU film.
Wow.
And because Love and Thunder at least had the modus operandi. It was a silly film by intent. It was excruciating to watch, but it executed exactly what Taika Waititi wanted. He made a dog shit, stupid film. He was drunk on his own success, as was Chris Hemsworth at that point. And what they produced was fully by intent. This is a film that is, the more you watch, the more questions you have about why, and if that, then why this. Brie Larson's Oscar is a long time ago now. I'm yet to see her play a part where I don't think she's just dull as dishwater. Tiona Paris added nothing to this film. Iman Vellani, she has the enthusiasm of somebody that's pulled out of obscurity and put in this world of superheroes, both in real life and as the character. So she's basically playing herself, and her enthusiasm for the role is one of the few saving graces of this film. Sam Jax has gone, I mean, if it was ever possible to make Secret Invasion worse, this film managed to do it. It took a browbeaten, aging, elder statesman of a cinematic universe and all of the concerns and sort of retreats that were established in Secret Invasion apparently don't exist in this. His Skrull wife doesn't exist in this. There is a planet and a settlement that seems pretty extensive of Skrulls, which then asks the question, well, why did they need to be on Earth? He just magically reappears on Saber, having been effectively fired in Secret Invasion. I know with the changing release dates and whatnot, it just feels like Secret Invasion should have come a couple of months after this. But he's his charming, charismatic, quippy best. But that character was stripped in Secret Invasion. Zor Ashton plays an accuser. So after Ronan, she plays it completely. Lee Pace is a great actor. He's a brilliant actor, a very much underrated one that hasn't quite had that role. And I don't know if he ever will, because he seems content on doing the indie. He seems content on being an indie darling. Halt and Catch Fire, he was brilliant in. I actually think his portrayal of Ronan was pretty good. I know it was a little bit one note. This, however, is like Malekith when Christopher Eccleston, when he played Malekith, at least he was menacing. You felt the unbridled commitment to duty that he wanted to restore his nation. I mean, kind of what Zor Ashton does here, but this is a paper thin, it's paper thin and it's been left out in the rain version of the worst of Malekith, of the worst of Ronan. The motivations are completely suspect. So here's the thing. There's a whole film missing here. There's a whole film where Captain Marvel, after the first film, is in space wiping out the Kree. there's a very short passage of her. Basically, that scene in Endgame where she appears and they turn all their weapons upwards to try and shoot her, and she just goes straight through the Leviathan, right? There's a scene of that where she just careers through the higher intelligence or whatever it's called, the Kree, supercomputer, the AI that tells them what their destiny or what their value is to the Kree Empire. And apparently from destroying a supercomputer, their son died. And because the sun died, there was no atmosphere and all the water went away. So Zor Ashton's character, the Accuser, she's got the other bangle from Miss Marvel, okay? From her TV show, and they're always supposed to be a pair. So Zor Ashton's character wants to put them both together to be able to open, the space jumps. Now they're set in three-dimensional space, that they only exist at certain points, and she is, with the bangles, she's opening jumps that don't exist. So she's creating this instability in time and space. And how she is adopting those, weaponizing them, is the first one, she sucks the atmosphere out of the Skrull safe hold. Because there's a vacuum, so the atmosphere gets sucked through. She then goes to a planet where they communicate in only song and dance, which is just this excruciating, we're doing Bollywood, but we're not doing Bollywood because we have a Pakistani character. Cringeworthy. Oof. It is horrible. So they suck the water off that planet because it's like 96% water or something. And then they're going to go to Earth to suck the sun out. Now, it's one of those where it's a conversation. Like Captain Marvel she ends up restarting their sun just from the energy she can create when she's going binary. So she just flies into the sun, and apparently that doesn't destroy it. But it reignites it somehow. The only good point was Kamala Khan's family. They were brilliant as they were in the TV series, but there's this curious series of events where Nick Fury, they basically, every time they use their powers coincidentally, so Photon or Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel, then they change places. So there's this big battle in their home, in the Khan family's home, because a couple of, I don't know, I just don't know how it works and how it doesn't work, but a couple of the Kree get sucked in with it or something. It's like holding Freddy Krueger's hat when you wake up, sort of shit. I don't know. And then Nick Fury takes them to the space station for some reason. It makes no sense. Like if there was a scene where it says, "You take me to my daughter right now," or "We need to keep you safe because now they know where you live. We can't leave you there." Nothing. They just appear on the space station. I mean, the final scene is Monica Rambeau, so Photon, whatever she's called. Her light powers apparently can repair the tears in space-time, right?
Right.
So she has to go to the other side to do it. Why? Why? I was looking forward to you having watched the film, Tim, but because I had a sciencey thing. Now, the science behind it is actually accurate because people have been criticizing, like, well, how does this do it? Now, if you can imagine empty space is actually a thing. It's not just a lack of a thing, it's a thing. So let's say you're completely submerged in a swimming pool, you have water around you. Empty space, it's not like a recordable thing. And we're not talking about dark matter, which is about, 70% of the universe. We're not talking about things you can't see or record. Space is a thing. Now, like absolute zero is like minus whatever it is Kelvin, or 0 Kelvin minus whatever Celsius or Fahrenheit. That is something with no energy, absolute zero. But there is also a maximum temperature that anything can go to, and that is called the Planck temperature. Now, the Planck temperature is theorized that if you could get something that hot, it would in actual fact tear space-time. And the theory is that at that point it would bubble, and that's how the universes are formed, that it bubbles
Oh,
out from
interesting.
that. Yeah, so that's one theory, right? The multiverse is almost like an amoeba splitting sort of thing, or like
Yeah.
single cell splitting from this maximum. Well, it's not theoretical, but I mean, we won't ever be able to create it. So that part of it was surprisingly accurate. Whether or not they actually knew that that's what they were doing or not, I don't know. And then again, we have this horrible post-credit scene where, and this was spoiled, I think Marvel, what are they doing? They're giving away everything in the trailers now, and I think they're sneakily leaking the post-credits to this to try and get people to go. And I on principle didn't want to go opening weekend. I would have gone second weekend because it's already failed at that point. But
Yeah.
the post-credit scene's been leaked because it has the singer, Bryan Singer, right? So it has Kelsey Grammer as Beast because you get, like I said, Monica Rambeau gets sucked through. She seals the fourth dimensional tear, and then she wakes up in hospital. Her mother is her same age, but it's that universe's mother. It's kind of like a multiverse of madness where Maria Rambeau, I think her name is, she becomes Captain Marvel, but she's called Binary on this, which I think was a Kelly Thompson character from her run. She created this Binary character. And then Kelsey Grammer's Beast appears and says, "Oh, how's the stranger?" Because she thinks that's her mum. She's like, "Oh, I think she's a little bit confused." But I'm sick and tired, like Pip the Trot with Harry Styles, like the bloke from Ted Lasso, the guy from Ted Lasso turning up as Hercules. Now we have this third, and these are only the ones I can remember, this horrible CGI that looks like a fucking cartoon. Like, would it have hurt to just have Kelsey Grammer in makeup for 6 hours on one day to stand there? And you know, the way the cheekbones are a lot higher and the eyes are a little bit smaller and the noses are dead small. And then they've got this big grin. I mean, it looked like the animated series Beast, except it's been like in the Chip and Dale thing where they have like a CGI sort of facelift. Just enough with it already. Enough. We still haven't had a follow-up from Shang-Chi where there's a message going somewhere. Stop with it. Stop with it now. This film should have been out 2-3 years ago, and it shouldn't have been this film. It should have been Captain Marvel going and taking on the Kree in this intergalactic fucking space opera. Maybe have some of the Guardians appear. Maybe have Harry Styles appear in that as Thanos' brother. I just don't understand. It just doesn't seem like anybody knows what's going on from one film to the next. And these fucking breadcrumbs aren't breadcrumbs. They're just, they're chunks that are just being thrown to the fucking ducks. It's so frustrating, Tim. And I know you're not supposed to say this. I know you're not supposed to say this, but it fucking frustrates me. Why is it acceptable in this is specifically in superheroes. Let me say with no lack of certainty, I'm exclusively talking about superheroes now. Why is it now acceptable to have unattractive, overweight actors playing superheroes? Because you're getting paid so much money. The men manage it. Fucking Paul Rudd had a six-pack in the Ant-Man film, and he did a shirtless scene. And I thought, well, maybe fuck it. She's going to Paris. I thought, well, maybe she's just a thick lady. Maybe she is. And I go on the fucking press interviews, and she sits down and she's got a belly. You're playing a fucking superhero. Like, honestly. And I get it. And like Villani as well, like bless her. But on G. Willow Wilson's characterization of Kamala Khan, she's this lanky, tall, awkward-looking girl, not like a sort of cute, bouncy girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's always fluctuations from the source material to the comics. But it's incredibly frustrating. Incredibly. Like, you've got a role, like everyone's dreaming of, maybe not so much now, but they're dreaming of an MCU role. But you can't do a training camp for 3 months. Lazy.
Yeah.
Infuriates me, Tim. Infuriates me. Because you wouldn't. I mean, it's like a competition between the male actors. Like when, oh goodness me, who played Cable and Thanos?
Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin. When he turned up to set, Dave Bautista went, oh, he's throwing the gauntlet down for Infinity War. And he said he knew he had to get bigger for Endgame. Like, it's this like healthy competition. Plus, it's just, that's the job, right? It's the job. You're a superhero. You can't say it, but I've said it. And it's how I feel. And you're not going to stop me feeling that by me not saying it. And maybe that makes me a bad person. But nobody wants to see this fucking film. So it's not just me thinking that this hasn't been done in the right way. And to be fair, Brie Larson, I don't like the lady. I don't like her because of the press interviews that she did with all the other Avengers. She looked petty. She looked uninterested, argumentative when she had that outburst saying, well, this film isn't for middle-aged white men. I'm like, well, it is, mate, because we're 70% of the fucking audience. Let me tell you that much. And that's reflective of how poorly this film's done. Really is. Because, and the stats on any social media I've ever had for a podcast or anything else, it's mostly men between the age of 35 and 55. And that's about 70% of the audience. Straight men as well. And that's what people have ticked the boxes to tell me. Anyway, point being, Brie Larson, at least she takes the role serious enough. Like, she was in killer shape. She looked like a superhero. There's no two ways about it. But the acting in this throughout was so flat. The only people that did it any justice was the Khan family, who were charming, gregarious, cheeky. It was great. Yeah, they were great. They were great to watch. I could watch them. And it's the same thing with the TV program. In the early episodes of that, focusing on their family, because I've said it before, didn't I, on one of our recent episodes, how warm and welcoming subcontinental families are. And that was a perfect depiction of it. Like, really, really good. And then it gets into the silly, there's ghosts and spirits and another set of gods that we have to bring into it. And that's another thing now. How many gods do we need in the MCU? How many? We've got the Norse, well, we have the, is it Norse gods with Thor and all that? And now we have the Greek, then we have the Greek gods. Zeus, was it Zeus? And then we saw Hercules. And then we have the Egyptian gods. And now we have the, whatever it is from Miss Marvel. How does that all relate? And how long ago was Eternals? We had a massive celestial appear in space. There's one sticking out from the ground, and we're 5-6 years and nobody's even fucking mentioned it, Tim. I just can't. I knew this film wasn't going to be good, and I didn't go in with it with the expectations of that, because I feel the journey we've been through with the MCU, I want it to be good again. And when I went into this, despite I didn't walk out going, ha, Brie Larson. I just felt, oh no, Brie Larson. Oh no. Oh dear. And now she's saying she doesn't even want to do it anymore because of the abuse she's got. Keep your fucking mouth shut then. Have you tried that? Do you have any questions for me, Tim, or any general comments on what I've said?
I do have a question. It's more of an MCU question, but it is related to this movie. So to say Marvel's is bad only gives us limited information, because you could have a bad movie, like, in context. Take a sports team, for example. Like, imagine you're like 1-10 on the season.
Right.
But that team could nonetheless either be on the rise or on the decline, right? Like, you can see 1 in 10 teams could still have promise, and you could see it rising action as opposed to like just getting worse. It sounds like you're saying this portends very poorly because it's a bad movie and the franchise is on a decline. Is that fair?
It felt like they'd given up. They didn't push any pseudo-liberal feminist identity politics, nothing like that. So it feels like they retracted, but then they didn't fill it in with anything else. There were so many gaps in this film. There were so many. Here's the thing, right? When they established that Brie Larson's Captain Marvel effectively kills the Kree's home planet because she destroys the higher intelligence, whatever the fuck it's called, this big AI computer, right? So she's a little bit squirmish about going from place to place because she doesn't want it revealed that she's, I think they call her the Annihilator or something like that. That's the name that the Krees have for her. Now, there was plenty of opportunities for that to break Kamala Khan's idea of what Captain Marvel is. That she sees that she's caused all this trouble, right? And there's this one thing where they're rescuing people off the Skrull sort of refugee thing. But it's a nice little planet. They've done well. It's nice. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't just have moved all the Skrull there, like I said previously. Kamala Khan wants to get everybody into the ship, but Brie Larson has to say to her, Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, nonetheless, has to say to her, we need to save the ones that we can.
Mm-hmm.
And then they leave them as all these people are still running to the ship. And that could have put a seed of doubt in Kamala Khan's mind. And then when she finds out that she's responsible for all this destruction, in actual fact, it's what Carol Danvers has done that's motivated Saul Ashton's character. That there could be that doubt whereby Kamala Khan realizes she has to be her own hero at that point, and that tough decisions are a part of it. It's not all about being the biggest fan and knowing everything, that now she has the responsibility. And it didn't do any of that. It didn't do any of it. Or maybe even Kamala Khan, using her light powers, was holding up something till the last minute. And as they flew away in this space vessel, she sees when her light breaks and it collapses on them. And then she has to bear the burden. And then maybe she understands that you can't save everybody. There's always going to be some sacrifice. But there was no nuance to it. It was like they gave up on Carol Danvers can do everything a man can do, but better. And then they muted that because of the reaction. But then they didn't put any further substance in there. And I mean, it asks questions, doesn't it? Because you have Mia DaCosta in there, a very limited, and people say, yeah, well, James Gunn and the Russo brothers didn't have, right, but those guys they were comic book fans before they were filmmakers. That's the difference. And they knew the source material. It's not like bringing in somebody that's had one IP film that did quite well, who may or may not have read a comic. That is now the exception. It's not the rule. And when you have people like this, I think the first time was in the original Captain Marvel film. I can't remember what the couple were called that were co-directors. But that was the first time we saw where they stripped control. They didn't bring somebody in to do what they do well. They brought somebody in to henpeck them into doing the MCU way. Mm-hmm. It just felt like they'd given up. We need to do this film. Let's just get it out. But sad. Like I said, at the end of it, I was just like, oh no. Maybe this is, what's the opposite of an epoch?
Nadir?
A nadir. Maybe. Hopefully this is the nadir, Tim.
I no longer get excited for these. I can't believe if you asked me 5 years ago, like, it's you know, like, live for the MCU. Now I don't even look forward to it. I don't know.
When you let everybody know, Tim, what's it called? Full disclosure. We weren't even going to cover this film, but we've had a very busy couple of weeks, haven't we, between us?
Yeah.
And we weren't prepared for the stuff that we were going to read. We were going to do the Royal Hotel in brief, and we were going to do it as a bonus sort of YouTube thing, but we had no inclination to do this film. But it was just an easy one to. It was just an easy one, and to think that there is a world where we weren't going to cover an MCU film.
I know.
So let's say goodbye to the people then, Tim. After you.
Goodbye, people. Ashburn, Brussels, hang in there. We're gonna try to upload every week. We're gonna try to record. We have actually a lot planned over the next like 3 months, I think.
Yeah, we have a lot. And with the, I know the scriptwriters' strike is over now. However, I don't think. Well, Neon and A24 have a free pass, so hopefully they'll spring up with something every now and again that we can look at. They've still got a pretty full slate. But yeah, the major studios, and especially the tentpole stuff we talk about, that's probably going to be like May, June next year. But we have a bunch of cool comics that we're going to be talking about. We've scheduled Neil Gaiman month in January, and then we're going to go through a few classics in February. And I think Joe's going to join us for that. Tara's going to join us for the Neil Gaiman month. The ones we have currently slated for February are Gotham Central, Dan Slott's Silver Surfer, and Brian Michael Bendis's Alias.
Right.
So that only leaves me to say goodbye, your regular co-host, Matt. Thank you very much for listening. And again, just to remind everybody, hit subscribe, please, everybody. Or go to YouTube and follow us on there where we chop up the episodes. Just a reminder, that's the End Pod One Shots on YouTube. On Instagram and Twitter, it is the End_pod. And if you found one of those chopped up bits of content, we are the End on all your favorite listening locations, but you'll need to search Spank Media, the End. So that only leaves me one more thing to say. We have been, and this is the End.
Good to know I don't have to watch Marvels.
Yeah, you will though, won't you?
Yes, I will.